Good morning. You're watching All You Need to Know on Bloomberg Quint Live, India's first live streaming digital news service. I am Jayesh Khilnani and I have with me Agam Vakil on the show to take you through the derivative space. But first, let's have a look at the handover from the US market. Well, the Dow Jones in fact closed with a positive bias, with the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq closing lower on Friday. And the European screen also closed largely lower. Now, if you look at the Asian screen, the Hang Seng has in fact opened with a 1% gain, while the Nikkei is trading about 0.5% higher. And the SGX Nifty too, it has come off from the day's low, currently trading about 8.5 points higher, and expect a start above 10,600 for the Nifty itself. Now, looking at some of the areas that traded on the US exchanges, Tata Motors, Vedanta and ICICI Bank closed lower by about 2.5 to 3%, and Wipro also managed to close with a downtake of about 0.9%. As far as Dr. Reddy's and HDFC Bank were concerned, we saw a 0.5% gain for each of them. Now, if you look at the commodity cues that we are getting, oil prices are in fact reacting and trading about 0.7 to 0.8% in the green. But remember, on Friday we did see a 1% downtake. Now, looking at the base metal space, we are getting mixed cues as far as the base metals are concerned. On London Metal Exchange, they in fact closed mixed, with the aluminium trading about 1% lower and nickel, which climbed 1% higher. Now, looking at the Shanghai Futures Exchange, zinc prices are currently trading about 1% higher, and we have steel prices which have declined as much as 0.7%. But watch out for Shanghai Rubber, that is currently trading 5% higher, and this is the third straight day that we have seen gains for rubber prices. Coming to the precious metal space, gold is struggling below the 1300 mark. In fact, last week was the worst week that it had in 2018. Moving on to the fund flows, the broader trend continues. FIs have been sellers while DIs have been buyers. So the FIs sold 166 crores, while the domestic institutions bought 150 crores on Friday. For the month itself, FIs have sold 4,000 crores worth of equity, while the DIs have pumped in more than 7,000 crores. Quick recap of what happened on Friday in terms of the key indices that we have. So the Nifty 50 in fact closed with a loss of about 0.8%, while mid-cap index declined 1.5%, and the small-cap index declined more than 2% for itself. Not many gainers in Friday's trade. We had the Nifty FMCG index, which climbed more than 1%. In fact, plenty of losers on Friday. We had key indices like Nifty Infra, Nifty, if we can have a look at those indices, those actually declined in trade. So we had Nifty Infra, Nifty Pharma and the Nifty Metal Index, which declined more than 2%. The return of volatility, we saw it on Friday. If we can have a look at the India VIX, that in fact surged 5.5% in trade and back above the 14 mark. Now, if you look at the contribution of what led to the 86-point fall in the Nifty, we had Kotak Mahindra Bank, ITC, HUL and Bajaj Finance, which closed positive, while other heavyweights like ICICI Bank, Reliance and HDFC closed negative. But Agam, what does this all mean for the F&O space?
Well, we're going to have to wait and watch, Jayesh. Even though the Asian markets are indicating an up move, well, there could be some volatility in store. We have seen fresh shorts building up in the Nifty, and when it comes to the Nifty bank futures, longs unwinding, considering we have seen a drop in its open interest of as much as nearly 5.5%. That said, when it comes to the WIX, well, it has moved up, but still largely range bound between, well, 14 and 15. And currently around 14.1. The Nifty put call ratio, on the other hand, has come off quite a bit to around 1.35, considering we have seen that fall in the indices, and this also indicates a lot of writing in the calls, and thereby we've also seen a lot of unwinding inputs, which will be evident in your open interest across your several strikes that you can see on you will see on the screen here. As you can see, unwinding in the 10,600, 700 and 800 puts. On the other hand, a lot more writing coming through around the 10,600 mark. So watch out for these levels as we move into trade today. That said, two stocks which move into the F&O band. We have Balrampur Chini and Reliance Communications. On the other hand, Just Dial moves out of the F&O band. Do remember the Just Dial, it will also announce its earnings in today's day of trade. Was down nearly 5.8% well on last Friday. We're also keeping an eye on several other counters such as Colgate-Palmolive, where we saw fresh longs building, considering a near 9% increase in open interest. Colgate-Palmolive also announces its earnings today. And on the other side, we also have SRF, which showed a lot of weakness with nearly 42% added in open interest towards fresh shorts. So a lot of stocks to watch out for, and of course the indices. But now let's go across to Bloomberg's Paul Allen for the top international headlines.
Japan's exports picked up in April after a lackluster performance in March, despite the tension between its two biggest trading partners, the US and China. Shipments abroad rose 7.8% compared with forecasts of 8.7%, while inbound deliveries rose just under 6% against estimates of a near 10% gain. That's left a surplus of $5.6 billion. The Kiwi dollar slipped after New Zealand retail sales posted their smallest gain in almost 3 years. First quarter sales, excluding inflation, expanded just 0.1% from the previous 3 months. That was against forecasts of a 1% gain and came as fourth quarter sales growth was revised down from 1.7 to 1.4%. Venezuela is voting in an election largely ignored at home and rejected by foreign critics, including the United States. The main opposition is boycotting what's seen by many as a sham that will hand President Nicolas Maduro a second term. The United Nations has refused to certify the vote as fair, while Washington says it won't recognize the result and warns that oil sanctions are under active review. Italy's populist parties have agreed on a prime minister, bringing a government closer as warnings grow louder about Eurozone stability. League boss Matteo Salvini and five-star leader Luigi Di Maio are expected to propose a cabinet later on Monday, although they've yet to announce any names. France warned the new administration must respect Italy's debt commitments and not threaten the common currency. Global news 24 hours a day on air and at TikTok on Twitter, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Paul Allen. This is Bloomberg.
A trade negotiation, a trade discussion, if you're not going backwards, if you're not both walking away from the table and you're still trying to make progress, that is progress. And again, Steve Mnuchin, the Treasury Secretary, I should say, made it pretty clear for now they're just going to declare a truce on trade. Here's what he said to Fox News Sunday.
We're putting the trade war on hold. So right now we have agreed to put the tariffs on hold while we try to execute the framework. The president has been very clear since the first meeting with President Xi in Mar-a-Lago that we are going to reduce the trade deficit. We have an agreement with China that they will substantially agree to it.
And let's just remember some of the key elements that were on the table, so to speak, going into last week's talks and following the talks between the U.S. and China teams in Beijing week before last. Yes, broadly speaking, President Trump has said he would like China to cut its trade surplus with the U.S., about $376 billion now, by $200 billion by the year 2020. And please, let's tighten up on intellectual property. Stop stealing U.S. Technical secrets. The threat, of course, is that $150 billion of tariffs on China. Now, Larry Kudlow, who is the head of the National Economic Council, one of Donald Trump's top economic advisors, on Face the Nation today, he was asked about, well, is the tariff threat still there? He basically said, in terms of taking them off the table, I don't think we're there yet. He said tariffs are often part of trade negotiations. So that's what we know for sure so far.
You know, Kathleen, though, are there any actual concrete steps that have been taken?
Well, Liu He, who is Xi Jinping's main economic advisor, also agreed, hey, we're not going to have a trade war right now. Here's what he said. We made very meaningful progress and we agreed on a framework. The framework includes their agreement, the U.S. agreement, to substantially reduce the trade deficit by increasing purchases of goods. Larry Kudlow, again, on Face the Nation, saying, well, this would boost U.S. exports by billions and billions and billions. Let's take a look at the joint statement and see some of the elements that were there. First of all, they agree that the steps will be taken to cut the U.S. trade deficit with China. China will buy more U.S. goods and services. And in fact, they will buy more of the U.S. farm and energy exports. That's important. Both see more trade back and forth in manufactured goods. And they want to put paramount importance on intellectual property. So, again, is that concrete? I wouldn't say it's exactly concrete. In fact, Wilbur Ross, according to Steve Mnuchin, will be going immediately to China to start hammering out the details on many of these issues. But again, I think if we know how trade talks go, we know this is going to take time.
Stock in focus is expected to be Ultratech Cement and Century Textile on account of the demerger of cement business of Century Textile to Ultratech Cement. The basic details of the deal, where Century Textile Cement division includes 3 integrated cement units, which includes an 11.4 MTPA capacity, a 2 MTPA grinding unit and 1.25 MTPA capacity, which at this point of time would not be transferred because of the statutory clearance, the pending statutory clearance. In a swap ratio, for every 8 shares of Century Textile, 1 share of Ultratech would be allocated. The transaction is expected to complete in the span of next 6 to 9 months, and Century Cement business turnover is around 4,306 crore, while its EBITDA is around 544 crore as per March 31st, 2018. And also, if you look at the enterprise value, Ultratech will be paying around 8,085 for around 11.4 MTPA capacity that Century Textile Cement business will get in. What does this mean for Ultratech in terms of valuation? Definitely it's in line with the industry standard. If you look at the enterprise value of around 8,000 odd crore along with an MTPA of capacity of 11.4 MTPA capacity, the enterprise value turns up to be to the tune of $106 per ton, which is not only lower as compared to Ultratech's own valuation of $194 per ton, but also the enterprise value that we saw for JP Asset, which currently stood around 116 back in 2016. Also, if you look at EV to EBITDA, that is currently trading lower to Ultratech. The deal EV to EBITDA is lower as compared to Ultratech own EV to EBITDA. The deal is currently valued at an EV to EBITDA multiple of 16 times as compared to Ultratech EV to EBITDA of 19 times. If you look at the geographical advantage, it has an advantage now. Ultratech has an advantage over ACC and Ambuja given the kind of capacity it has. But then with this kind of merger which has happened through, it will further increase its capacity in eastern, central and western zone. And from this, the capacity which currently stands at 92.5 MTPA domestically will shoot up to 105.9 MTPA. Also, if you look at the shareholding pattern, there will be minute changes there. We would see higher promoter shareholding, and equity share capital will increase by as much as 5.8% for Ultratech Cement. Total shares that would be issued will be to the range of around 1.40 crore. And if you look at the other parameters, then we'll see the company net debt to EBITDA currently is existing around 2.09 times, which post acquisition will go up to 2.35 times.
Let's get your check on the commodity space as well, starting off with oil prices. Now, oil prices are currently trading more than 0.5% in the green after losing 1% on Friday. So some bit of volatility has in fact creeped into the oil markets. Now, US rig count has remained unchanged and currently at a 3-year high. As far as brokerages on oil markets are concerned, we have one interesting note coming in from JBC Energy, and they say that $100 a barrel remains a realistic possibility given the oil supply concerns that we have seen, on account of the sanctions that have been put on hold. Now, as far as base metals are concerned, the index itself snapped its 2-day winning streak and closed about 0.5% negative. Individual base metals traded mixed, with nickel that closed higher for the 3rd consecutive week. In fact, more than 5% for the last week on an uptick basis. Aluminium posted its 3rd consecutive loss on a daily basis. Copper snapped its 2-day losing streak, and we had lead, which declined the most since April this year. Now, if you look at the Shanghai Futures Exchange, base metals are in fact trading with a mixed bias. Zinc is trading more than 1% higher, while steel has lost more than 0.5%. But the interesting move has come in from rubber prices, which are currently trading more than 5% higher, and this is the 3rd consecutive day that we are seeing gains for rubber prices. So watch out for that one as well. As far as precious metals are concerned, gold in fact posted its worst week of 2018, and it's still struggling below the 1,300 an ounce mark on account of the dollar index, which is trading positive for the 6th consecutive session.
Right. Amongst the stocks that we are tracking today include Tata Steel and Bhushan Steel, and this is even as Tata Steel has completed the acquisition of 72.65% stake in Bhushan Steel. We're also tracking AU Small Finance Bank, which will raise about 1,000 crores from a unit of Temasek Holdings, and that will be done via the issue of shares and warrants at the price of 692.77 per share. That's close to the market price, but positive development. You have a PE fund infusion coming in. You could see some positive reaction on this one. Indiabulls Real Estate, they have fixed their buyback price at 240 per share. You have Endurance Technologies, which has said that they're entitled for a 283 crore industrial promotion subsidy. Watch out for that name as well. Also, a couple of reactions likely on the back of some US FDA observations. You have Alembic Pharma, which has received one observation, and that is for its Kharkari API unit. And then you also have Indoco Remedies, which has received 3 observations, and that is for its Patalganga API unit again. So watch out for those 2 names. That apart, we're also tracking South Indian Bank. Now, RBI has imposed a monetary penalty of 5 crores on the bank, and that is for non-compliance with NPA, KYC as well as treasury norms. That apart, on the back of bulk deals, now Welspun Enterprises, we saw promoter buying 1% stake on Friday, and then you also have ADF Foods, where Alpana Dangi bought 2.7% stake. The seller was promoter Bhavesh Thakkar, HUF, which sold 2.5% stake. So let's see if we see additional reaction on some of these names as well.
के रोज बढ़ती जा रही है, जिससे हमारे को जो पेमेंट तनख्वाह मिलती है उसमें पेट्रोल कहते हैं कि इतने लिमिट में स्कूटर चलाओ या अपने मार्केटिंग करो, लेकिन रोज के रोज मोदी जी बढ़ाई जा रहे हैं। इससे हम लोगों बहुत परेशान हैं।
We are in transporting business and also day to day we are using the vehicles, so it will cost is more for us. It should be dropped by another 5 to 10 rupees.
काम पे जाना है, गाड़ी में जाना है, पेट्रोल डलवा रहे हैं और कुछ कर ही नहीं पा रहे। जब से मोदी जी आए परेशान के अलावा कुछ नहीं ला रहे।
अब पेट्रोल के दाम बहुत बढ़ रहे हैं, बहुत दिक्कत हो रहा है, भाड़ा नहीं मिल रहा है, कुछ नहीं, धंधा भी नहीं हो रहा है।
कोई भी सरकार आ जाए, चाहे कोई भी आ जाए, चाहे बीजेपी हो चाहे कांग्रेस हो, सबका यही सीन है, कोई पेट्रोल के रेटों में कोई फर्क नहीं होता।
यार इसमें 1 रुपीज़ या 2 रुपीज़ नहीं तो मेरे तो एक राय है कि 100 ही कर लो ना। अभी
गाड़ी नहीं लेना सोचेंगे ही नहीं कि क्योंकि गाड़ी इतनी महंगी है तो उस पर 84 रुपीज़ हम लोग पेट्रोल पे स्पेंड करेंगे तो इट्स नॉट वर्किंग।
आई डोंट माइंड पेइंग लिटिल हाई बिकॉज आई एम कंट्रीब्यूटिंग समथिंग टू माय नेशन बिकॉज दिस मनी विल बी यूटिलाइज्ड फॉर समबडी एल्स, इट इज नॉट बीइंग वेस्टेड।
जो आमदनी है उसमें उससे ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा मुझे डीजल का पे करना पड़ रहा है और प्रॉब्लम बढ़ता जा रहा है क्योंकि डीजल जितना रेट बढ़ेगा हमारी आमदनी कम होती जाएगी।
डीजल से महंगी होने से लोगों की महंगाई बढ़ेगी और हम लोगों पे भार बढ़ेगा।
जैसे ही चुनाव आने वाले होते हैं वैसे ही दोबारा रेट बढ़ जाता है और ये जनता ही है, जनता के पैसों से ही सब कुछ जाता है और कुछ नहीं है। बस
कोशिश करे गवर्नमेंट अगर ये डीजल कम रेट कर दे तो बहुत अच्छा है हम लोगों के लिए।
प्रकार विशेष करके मध्यवित्त और निम्न मध्यवित्त गरीब परिवार को ये प्रकार तेल दाम कष्ट दौर गुड़िया विषय आम हाथ में न था। अंतर्जातिक स्तर में 2-3 घटना जो भाई आम उल्लेख करली ओपेक देश समूहर उत्पादन कम करने निष्पत्ति, अमेरिका और ईरान रो झगड़ा, वेनेजुला रे अंतर्द्वंद कारण गृह कंदल कारण सेठिकार अर्थनीति भुशुड़ी पड़ा, एवं प्रमुख कारण आज अंतर्राष्ट्रीय बाजार रे कंचा तेल दाम बढ़। भारत सरकार या तीक्ष्ण दृष्टि रखी किसी ना किसी रास्ता बाहर करा।
Well, the IPO of Indostar Capital Finance will list today. The price band, the issue price has been fixed at 572 per share. That's the upper price band. And remember, despite a mixed verdict coming in from brokerages with respect to applying to the IPO, we did see a reasonable demand for the IPO, total of 6.8 times. A large part of the demand, of course, coming in from the QIB and HNIs. Overall, let's just do a quick recap of what was on offer. They're looking to raise about 1,844 crores, out of which fresh issue is of 700 crores. That is what will flow into the company, which will be used to expand their lending portfolio. On the other hand, it was an OFS of about 1,144 crores from the promoter entity Indostar Capital and also some of the other selling shareholders. Now, this is a Mumbai-based NBFC, relatively newer, started operations just in 2011 and is backed by the Everstone Group. So, if you look at their business profile overall, a large part of their lending portfolio comes from corporate lending, that is about 77%. Again, a big part of that corporate lending only comes from real estate lending. They started SME operations in 2015, so that's another 22% of their portfolio. And recently in September or October 2017, they have forayed into home and vehicle finance, so that's a small part of their portfolio right now. But this is the retail part that they expect or want to grow in the future. If you look at the financial parameters over the FY13 to 17 period, the credit exposure has grown at a CAGR of 30%. Net interest income and net profit have also grown in excess of 20-25% over that period. So strong growth numbers. But if you look at some of the other operating parameters, the gross NPA has steadily inched up from 0.8% in FY14 to 1.7% as of 31st December. Nevertheless, it seems like a reasonably manageable number given that a large part of their portfolio is corporate lending. That apart, if you look at the return ratios for the company, this seems slightly on the weaker note with the ROE of 10.9% and ROA of 3.8%. Now, we have estimated we've done certain scenario analysis for the possible listing price. According to market participants that we've spoken to, the issue is likely to list at a 20 to 30 rupees premium. So at a issue price of 572, it's valued at 1.87 times its book value. But if it were to list at 592 or even 30 rupees higher at 602, that would imply a price to book ratio of nearly 2 times. But at 1.8 times, analysts believe that the issue was not really expensive but reasonable. Having said that, this is how it compares with some of its peer group companies. Relatively seems the valuation seems lower, but having said that, I do want to say that these are not directly comparable peers because Capital First, Shriram and Mass Financial are more of SME lenders with a focus on retail, whereas Indostar has a larger corporate book. While they're trying to diversify into retail, the current book base is mainly corporate. So relatively, you could compare it more to Piramal Enterprises, which has a huge real estate portfolio, but it's a slight premium listing that a lot of people are expecting.